You're walking through a quiet stretch of land. Maybe it's a forest edge, cathedral oaks draped in lichen, the canopy just beginning to unfurl its first tender leaves. Maybe it's a field, that liminal space between the managed and the wild where the most tenacious plants push through. Maybe it's just a patch of green tucked beneath between roads and buildings. What the old herbalists might have called a volunteer garden, life insisting on itself despite concrete and exhaust. At first, it looks like nothing special, but then something shifts behind your eyes. You start to see in different language. Leaves you recognize, the jagged teeth of dandelion, the hollow stem of elderberry, the unmistakable purple haze of wild violets. Plants you've heard about in old books, in grandmother's kitchens, in herbalism courses you stayed up too late watching. Food, medicine, life. And with that recognition, that electric, ancient spark of knowing, comes a question that has echoed through human consciousness for as long as we have walked upright on this earth. Just because I can take something, does that mean I should? Foraging is often romanticized, and understandably so. There is something profoundly stirring about a basket filled with wild greens, about mushrooms gathered at dawn while the mist still clings to the hollow, about the feeling of being, however briefly, in direct conversation with the earth that sustains you. But beneath that beauty is a web of responsibility so old it predates any culture we can name. Because the wild is not a store. It has no inventory system, no restocking policy, no manager you can speak to when the shelves are bare. It is a relationship, old, complex, reciprocal, and easily broken by hands that do not know what they are touching. Today, we are walking into that relationship with honesty. We're talking about the ethics of foraging. Sacred harvest principles carried forward from indigenous traditional land-based cultures. The practice of land acknowledgement as a living spiritual act, the real ecological risk of modern foraging culture, and what it truly, practically, spiritually means to take from the wild and to give it back.
Welcome, witches, pagans, heathens, spiritualists, and anyone interested in living sustainably. This is
Old Ways, New Days, where the old ways meet the good dirt.
I'm Kayla.
And I'm Nell. And each week we explore the sacred art of living close to the land. From compost to covens, chickens to charms,
We're reclaiming self-sufficiency, seasonal living, and ancestral wisdom.
whether you're stirring your cauldron or your soup pot,
This is a space for wild-hearted folk walking the homesteading path with intention, magic, and muddy boots. Welcome back now.
how's it going, Kayla?
Still busy.
Sorry for that long introduction.
No, that's okay.
Yeah, some crazy fool wrote it.
I know.
Yeah, might have to demote her.
If you can do this on your own.
I have no time. No time for the wicked right now.
Right. So because we are so busy, we are pre-recording a bunch again.
Mm-hmm.
I think this summer maybe we'll be able to do more weekly, maybe.
Hopefully. Because I know I have quite a few pool tournaments coming up as well. And those are usually on the weekends though, so that helps, but plop. But you never know. And then with moving in between all of that as well. And the headache that I have with the paint at my house.
Yeah.
Because... Okay.
Yes, kitty cats. We have 3 of the 4 in here.
But the paint is not blending well on the walls with pre-existing paint.
Did you wash the walls first?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Because we patched nail holes, washed the walls, and because the paint, like, I think it was a different base.
Okay,
well,
like oil versus acrylic or something like that?
No, I don't think it was like that, but I think different brands will have different effects.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, that sucks.
And I do not want to paint the entire house. I already painted the pink room.
Well, when I come back, if you still haven't finished painting...
Well, we're having pictures taken on Friday.
Okay.
So, hopefully, fingers crossed.
Yeah, okay.
Hopefully they can do some editing in the photos and make it look good.
Oh, yeah, that's always, Photoshop is nice.
Yeah.
So when this comes out, I will be in New Jersey.
I will be hopefully
moving.
I'm not quite yet.
Oh, okay.
'Cause
Packed? You'll be packed?
But we're almost completely packed.
Already? Okay.
Yeah. We just have a few odds and ends in the kitchen.
That's not so bad then.
No, but we have a lot of cleaning to do.
Yeah.
Right now I have the oven sitting.
All right, well let's
get this done.
Let's not bore our listeners with our
crap.
Our lovely
Our personal
lives.
crap.
Yeah. So today we are talking about foraging. Especially springtime is when all of those lovely wild edible greens start appearing. So we wanted to really take a moment to talk about, the ethics and morals and the do's and don'ts, I guess, so to speak, of foraging.
Yes, absolutely.
So foraging is not a trend.
Speak.
I can speak. Let that land for a moment, because in our cultural... Oh my God! Wow!
She's got her tongue tied.
I do. All right. Let that land for a moment, because in our current cultural moment, where foraging aesthetics fill Pinterest boards and wild herb cookbooks line the shelves at urban bookstores, it can be easy to mistake rediscovery for invention. Foraging is one of the oldest continuous human practices on Earth. For roughly 95% of human history, our ancestors were hunter-gatherers. Foraging was not a lifestyle choice or a weekend hobby. It was the mechanism of survival. And it was not random. Modern archaeology and anthropology have fundamentally transformed our understanding of ancient forager cultures. We once assumed these were chaotic day-to-day survival exercises that early humans simply grabbed whatever was available. The evidence tells a profoundly different story. Indigenous cultures across every continent developed sophisticated ecological knowledge systems, passed through oral tradition with the precision of what we would now call botanical science. They knew which plants fruited in which moon cycles, how root systems responded to different harvesting techniques, which companion plants indicated the health of a target species, and how to read the land's signals, abundance and scarcity, before making any decision to harvest. The Aboriginal Australians, whose continuous culture stretches back for at least 65,000 years, practiced a form of land management so sophisticated that European colonizers initially mistook it for wilderness. It was not wilderness. It was a garden tended by a people who understood that the boundary between human and ecosystem was not a wall, it was a membrane. The Haudenosaunee Confederacy, which is and I'm sorry if I butchered that horribly, it's based off of the Iroquois Nation.
Iroquois.
What did I say?
Iroquois.
Oh my god. I'm really struggling today. Okay. The Iroquois of northeastern North America embedded ecological ethics into their governance through the 7-generation principle. The teaching that every decision must consider its impact on the world 7 generations into the future. This is not poetry, it was policy. The Celtic peoples of ancient Europe maintained sacred groves, nematons, as living temples where no harvesting occurred. These were buffer zones, ecological sanctuaries held in reverence not just for spiritual reasons, but because the people understood that some spaces must be left untouched for the whole to remain in balance. So when we talk about the ethics of foraging, we are not inventing new rules. We're remembering very old ones.
Come here. Hey, let go. Zelda with the claws. There.
My cat's trying to strip me naked.
Yeah, I know you want on my lap. You're trying to get up here. See?
Back to her throne.
So, in many indigenous and traditional land-based cultures across the globe, from the Pacific Northwest to the British Isles, from the Amazon basin to the steppes of Central Asia, there are remarkably consistent guiding principles around wild harvest. These are not regulations. They are not laws enforced by external authority. They are relational ethics. Agreements made not between humans and governments, but between humans and the land itself. So, it's a only take what you need principle. This principle sounds simple until you examine the word need. In a culture of abundance and accumulation, need has been radically redefined. We confuse want with need constantly. Traditional harvest ethics draw a clear line. Take what you will use, not what you might use, not what you would be impressive to bring home, not what fills the basket because the basket is there. The Anishinaabe people of the Great Lakes region speak of...
Sorry. So it's Anishinaabe people.
Oh, okay.
I know that one. The Anishinaabe people of the Great Lakes region speak of Minobimatsiwini. And I feel so bad. And it's not like you can go to Google Translate to get a pronunciation of that because their language
So we are sorry if we're completely butchering this word.
and not meaning at all to be disrespectful. It's
like a 1,000,000-letter word that has double vowels in places that you wouldn't think it would. It's like Minobimatsinwin.
It's probably Ma'atsinwin.
Minobimatsinwin.
We'll have to say that's close enough.
Alright, so often it's translated as the good life or living well. It is a concept deeply tied to taking only what sustains life without diminishing the capacity of the land to sustain others. The plant knows when it is being taken from with care. The plant knows when it is being stripped. This is not a metaphor to the traditions that carry it. It is literal, ecological truth.
So, beyond only taking what you need, you never take the first or the last. This is perhaps the most ancient of all harvest laws, found in some form in nearly every traditional foraging culture on Earth. The first plant you encounter is a scout, a sentinel. It tells you the species is present, but not how abundant. Taking the first risks taking a lone survivor. The first is left so you can find the second, the 10th, the 100th. The last plant is the future. It is the next year's seed. It is the foundation of the population that will be there for your grandchildren. Taking the last plant is an act of violence against time itself. In the Welsh folk tradition, certain plants, particularly elder and hawthorn, were never fully harvested. You took what the tree offered, you did not take the tree. In Scottish Highland tradition, the first fruit of any wild harvest was often left at the base of the plant, returned to the earth, before any gathering began. This was not superstition. It was a recalibration of the relationship, a reminder that you are a guest, not owner.
So you want to harvest with care. The technique is the ethic. How you harvest is as important as how much you harvest. Ripping a plant from the ground disturbs root systems and mycorrhizal networks. The underground fungal web that connects plants and enables them to share nutrients and communicate stress signals, what looks like a simple act of pulling a root can sever connections between dozens of organisms. So ethical harvesting techniques include using clean, sharp tools that minimize tearing and damage, harvesting leaves and stems in a way that leaves the plant capable of photosynthesis and regrowth, never harvesting more than 1/3 of any individual plant, avoiding compaction of the surrounding soil, even when where you stand matters, learning the difference between rhizome division, which can actually encourage growth, and root extraction, which kills. The doctrine of signatures, used in European and indigenous herbalism alike, teaches that plants communicate their nature through their form. But there is a deeper teaching embedded in this tradition. The herbalist must slow down enough to read that communication. Ethical foraging is, at its core, the practice of slowing down enough to actually see.
Give thanks, not as ritual performance, but as relationship. Acknowledgement matters. In the Lakota tradition, the act of mitakui oyanas inj. That's horrible. I can't.
Yeah.
There's no way I'm going to be able to say that. It translates to all my relations. This is spoken before and after any act of taking from the natural world. It is a declaration that the human being is not separate from what they are harvesting, that the plant, the soil, the water, the sun, and the human are all woven from the same cloth. This is not primitive superstition. It is a psychological and spiritual technology that keeps the harvester in a state of humility and awareness.
Are you good?
Delta's doing acrobatics on the top of the... What you doing, stretchy girl? Okay. This is not primitive superstition. It is psychological and spiritual technology that keeps the harvester in a state of humility and awareness. When you say all my relations before you pick, you cannot help but pause, and pausing is everything. In Norse tradition, offerings were made to the landvitir, the land spirits, before any significant act of harvesting or planting. These offerings, often food, drink, or crafted items, were less about appeasing supernatural beings and more about maintaining the understood agreement between humans and land. Gratitude expressed aloud, even if only you can hear it, changes the quality of your attention, and the quality of your attention determines whether you harvest ethically or extract mindlessly. Oh my God, Delta, you're so...
Weirdo.
Mm-hmm.
So, know before you gather, and knowledge is sacred responsibility. Misidentification in foraging can be lethal. Water hemlock is one of the most toxic plants in North America, and it bears a strong resemblance to wild parsnip and water parsley. Death cap mushrooms have claimed the lives of experienced foragers, but the ethics of knowledge go beyond personal safety. While crafting a plant you cannot accurately identify disrupts the ecosystem even in benign cases. You may be pulling a rare native species thinking it is a common invasive. You may be stripping a plant that 3 other species in that ecosystem depend on for shelter or food. In traditional cultures, knowledge was transferred with extraordinary care. An apprentice herbalist might spend 3 full seasons simply observing a plant before being permitted to harvest it. They watched it emerge, they watched it flower, they watched it go to seed, they watched it die back. Only then, having witnessed its full cycle, were they considered ready to be in relationship with it. This is the model. Start slow, learn deeply, observe before you act.
So land acknowledgement is more than words. Before we talk about gathering from the land, we must sit with a harder truth. Whose land is it? In the United States, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, and much of Europe, the land beneath our feet has a history that extends far beyond the current legal ownership structures. For many of us, particularly those of European descent, that history includes dispossession, treaty violation, and the systemic dismantling of the very knowledge systems we are now rediscovering with reverence. For many indigenous communities, foraging is not a hobby or a wellness practice. It is a culture embedded in ceremony, story, and identity. It's tradition carried by grandmothers and medicine keepers across generations of oppression. It's sovereignty, the right to access and steward ancestral land that was, and in many cases continues to be, legally restricted. Land acknowledgement, when practiced with genuine intention, is not a disclaimer read at the beginning of a meeting and promptly forgotten. It is an ongoing spiritual practice. It asks us to hold simultaneously the beauty of the land we are standing on, the grief of how it was taken, the complexity of our own position within that history, and the responsibility to act differently. This does not mean non-Indigenous people cannot forage. It means approaching the practice with radical humility. Practice steps toward genuine land acknowledgement include: learn the original name of the land you forage on, and the nations whose ancestral territory it sits within. Native Land Digital, which we'll leave in our show notes, is an excellent starting resource. Support Indigenous-led conservation and land stewardship organizations financially and politically. Seek out Indigenous educators if you want to learn traditional plant knowledge and pay them fairly for that knowledge. Advocate for land-back movements and Indigenous water rights, which directly affect the health of foraging ecosystems. Do not share foraging locations publicly for plants that are also sacred or medicinally significant to Indigenous communities. The over-tourism that follows can devastate these populations. The land remembers who has tended it. When we forage, we enter a story already in progress. We are not the first chapter, and our practices determine whether we will be chapters after us.
So now
Reciprocity?
I was getting there.
I know. It is a tongue-tied day.
Reciprocity with the wild, the original economy. Reciprocity is the moral spine of ethical foraging. Not transaction, not exchange, reciprocity. An ongoing, dynamic, sometimes asymmetrical relationship of giving and receiving that does not keep score, but does keep faith. The ecologist and author Robin Wall Kimmerer, a member of the Citizen Potawatomi Nation and professor of environmental biology, writes in Braiding Sweetgrass that the Potawatomi language was a grammatical structure that treats living things as subjects, not objects. A tree is not it, a tree is who. The grammatical shift, she argues, is not merely poetic, it fundamentally changes our relationship to beings we encounter. When the moss is who, you cannot harvest it carelessly. When the mushroom is who, you cannot take more than what you share. Let me redo that sentence. When the moss is who, you cannot harvest it carelessly. When the mushroom is who, you cannot take more than your share. What does reciprocity look like in practice? Active reciprocity. Removing invasive species from the areas where you harvest. Scattering seeds of native plants as you walk. Participating in habitat restoration projects. Supporting rewilding efforts and land conservation financially. Creating pollinator gardens and water features that support foraging ecosystems from the outside. Restraint as reciprocity. While walking away when a plant population looks stressed or sparse. Not harvesting during a drought year even if the plants are technically present. Leaving your harvest tools at home on some visits. Going simply to observe, to see how things are without taking. Choosing to buy cultivated versions at a risk herbs. Choosing to buy cultivated versions of at-risk herbs like wild golden seal, wild American ginseng, or ramps rather than wild harvested. Knowledge sharing as reciprocity. Teaching sustainable practices to new foragers. Reporting invasive species to your local conservation authority.
Conservation.
You
said conversation, as in like a conversation you had.
I thought I
people.
said conservation. Reporting invasive species to your local conservation authority. Volunteering with local land trusts and conservation organizations. Oh, it's one of those days.
Sorry.
Oh, water.
We are struggling so hard today.
Mm-hmm. Della's just roly-poly.
I know, she's out of reach. I can't play with her.
Volunteering with local land trusts and conservation organizations. The spiritual dimension of reciprocity. Yeah, okay. The spiritual dimension of reciprocity asks us to understand that the land is not a passive recipient of our care. It is an active intelligence. The mycorrhizal networks beneath our feet, what scientists now call the Wood Wide Web, not the World Wide Web, Wood Wide Web, are systems of communications, resource sharing. Yep, it's one of them. What scientists now call the Wood Wide Web are systems of communication, resource sharing, and collective response more complex than any human market economy. When we bring our attention and our gratitude to these systems, something shifts. Not just in us, but in how we move. Got it. It's your turn.
I don't know if I can.
Game on!
I know, right? The rise of social media has brought foraging into the mainstream in ways that are both beautiful and genuinely alarming. Overharvesting of popular species is now a documented ecological crisis. Ramps, also called wild leeks, have been harvested to the point of local extinction in parts of Appalachia and the northeastern United States. Their slow reproduction rate, a ramp plant can take 5 to 7 years to reach harvestable size, makes them catastrophically vulnerable to even modest overcollection. Wild American ginseng is now listed as a threatened or endangered species in multiple U.S. states due to overharvesting driven in part by its high commercial value. Indigenous communities who may Indigenous communities who have maintained sustainable relationships with this plant for thousands of years now watch it disappear from ancestral lands. Lion's mane mushrooms, morels, fiddlehead ferns, and elderberries are all experiencing increased harvesting pressure directly correlated with their viral popularity on social media platforms. Location sharing is a particular danger. When a forager posts a beautiful photograph of a mushroom bloom or a ramp-filled hollow with location tags or recognizable landmarks, they invite hundreds or thousands of people to visit a potentially fragile ecosystem. A forest floor that can sustain the football of 10 careful foragers cannot sustain 300 excited newcomers in a single weekend. The ethics of visibility in modern foraging culture asks us to consider whether sharing a location serves the land or only serves our own need for community and validation, whether the attention we bring to a species is proportional to what the species can bear, whether our foraging content inspires sustainable practice or merely fuels aesthetic desire. This is not about shame or secrecy. It's about recognizing that we exist within a collective impact, and that our individual choices ripple outward in ways we cannot always see.
Delta, stop chewing on the cord.
Hey, let's not electrocute ourselves.
So, if you are new to foraging, or if you are an experienced forager wanting to deepen your practice into something more intentional, here is a framework to return to. Before you go, research what is native, what is invasive, and what is at risk in your specific region. Learn the land's legal designation. Public lands, private lands, protected areas, and tribal lands each carry different ethical and legal obligations. Carry a regional field guide, and do not rely solely on apps for plant identification. Apps are improving, but they are definitely not infallible. So when you arrive, spend the first several minutes simply observing. Do not harvest immediately. Let your nervous system settle into the rhythm of the place. Notice what else is using the plants you've come to gather. Insects, birds, small mammals. These creatures depend on these resources too. Assess abundance honestly. Is this a thriving population or a struggling one? While harvesting, follow the 1/3 rule. Never harvest more than 1/3 of any individual plant. Harvest across a wide area rather than concentrating on one spot. Avoid disturbing root systems and soil structure. Take your waste with you, including any plant material you decide not to use. Before you leave, offer something. Gratitude spoken aloud. A seed scattered. A piece of invasive plant removed. Note the condition of the site so you can monitor it over time. And after you go, process your harvest mindfully. Waste what you've taken is a second taking. Share what you've learned, not where you were. Ask these questions regularly. Is this abundant here, truly? Do I know how to harvest this without harm? Will I use what I take fully, reverently? What is my relationship to this particular piece of land? What does this land need from me today? Not just what do I need from it?
The wild does not belong to us, and yet this is the paradox we must hold because we belong to it. We are made of the same water that falls as the rain and rises as sap. We are made of the same carbon that moves from soil to root to fruit to breath and back to soil again. When we eat a wild plant, we are not consuming something external to ourselves. We are completing a circle.
Foraging as its most ethical and most sacred is not about filling a basket.
It's about remembering a relationship so ancient that our bodies know it even when our minds have forgotten.
Every plant you touch with care is an act of memory. Every seed you scatter is a vote for the future. Every time you walk away from a sparse population, even when your hands are empty and your heart is disappointed, you are practicing a form of love so deep and so patient that the land itself takes notice.
The question is not, what can I gather?
The question is not even, how can I gather sustainably?
The deepest question is, how do I become the kind of being this land can trust?
Because that is what ethical foraging ultimately asks of us. Not just because technique, not just more knowledge.
A different quality of presence.
A presence that is humble enough to listen before it acts. Patient enough to observe before it takes. Grateful enough to give without being asked.
The wild does not need our protection. It has survived billions of years without us.
What it needs, what it has always needed, is for us to remember that we are not separate from it.
That we never were.
Go gently,
Harvest wisely,
give more than you take.
and remember the land is always watching,
Not with judgment, but with patience.
waiting to see if this generation of humans will finally remember. This is
Old ways, new days.
where the old ways meet the morning light.
And where remembering is a radical act.
That was awesome.